Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. This is going to be, I think, an explosive Cageside with John Morgan. We got a lot to go over. UFC on ABC 6 from Saudi Arabia. Bellator was in Ireland. Maybe not a lot of people knew that, but they did after some interviews happened. There was a little bit of reffing controversy. We'll touch on that. Conor gave some banging interviews to which Dana White, I think, secretly responded to. We'll dive into it. And guess what? We have 303 this weekend. I can't waste any more time. Let's bring him in. John Morgan, what up?
You said it, man. You can't waste any time at all, right? I mean, we're talking about Conor McGregor, the biggest star in the sport. We're talking about International Fight Week, the card that he was supposed to headline. We're talking about an amazing performance from Robert Whittaker in Saudi Arabia. Just unbelievable. Man, there's so much going on right now. It's amazing. It's a great time to be an MMA fan.
Now, like a lot of times we break down what happened this weekend and we almost need to speed through, but we can't disrespect Robert Whittaker by speeding through what he did this Saturday in Saudi Arabia. 1 minute, 49 seconds of round number one, and just a devastating knockout of Aspinall. Unbelievable.
Absolutely incredible performance from Robert Whittaker. I mean, you and I, listen, we were universally singing the man's praises for even taking this fight, right? Taking a dangerous, unknown opponent on short notice and saying, yeah, I know I'm the former champ, but I'm an anybody, anywhere, anytime kind of guy, and I'm going to step up and prove it. So universally, we praise him for that, right? But we also said it's kind of an unfortunate situation because you're kind of in a no-win situation. There's no upside here, right? I mean, if you win, you were supposed to win. If you lose, that's devastating to your legacy, and nobody's really going to give the respect. But I tell you what, I feel like Robert Whittaker performed so well here. He found a way to get a win out of a no-win situation, right? I mean, how can you not, after that performance, be like, man, I mean, my immediate tweet was like, Robert Whittaker is that guy, man. He deserves all of our respect for taking this fight, but then to go out there and to basically just sun a dude that I think is dangerous. You know what I mean? Again, the unfortunate part is I think a lot of
he is dangerous.
It's incredible. And again, I think a lot of people, the unfortunate part is a lot of people don't know the name Ikram Aliskerov. Talk to me in 3 years. Talk to me in 5 years, because you're going to look back on this date and go, oh my gosh, that really was an amazing performance from Robert Whittaker.
I know how good Aliskerov is. I actually broke down and watched some of his fights getting ready to watch this to re-energize myself, right?
Right.
And the dude is good. I mean, even if you look at Shemaya even said it's probably his toughest opponent he's ever had. I mean, yeah, he did KO him, but he said, it was probably the toughest opponent he's ever had. Okay.
Yep.
So
high praise.
The respect is there, maybe not from the masses, but from the people in the know. And for Robert Whittaker to do what he did. And I've seen this on a couple different social media platforms and whatnot about how good Robert Whittaker was of picking up tells within the first minute of a fight. Usually it takes somebody 5 minutes. I'm going to start reading. I'm going to get people's tells. Then I can implement it. It took 2 feints of Robert Whittaker to realize where the tell was, what the rhythmic pattern of Aliskerov was. On the third time, he let it fly.
It's amazing. That's high level striking at its finest, right? And I think, until you really study the game and understand, you might not understand what the point of those feints are sometimes, right? It might look like, oh, they're kind of hesitating. Why aren't they pulling the trigger? You know what I mean? But a high level striker, you laid it out perfectly. I'm going to fake the left hand and see, oh, you move this way? Okay, all right, I got you now. All right, now I'm going to double up and come with the left. Whatever it is, I'm going to see what patterns you show me, because it happens, right? Like everybody tries to fight without a pattern, but you get these rhythms, you get these routines, you get these way of dealing with things until you get in there and you get a chance. Okay, hold on. Let me throw. Let me see which way you move. Let me see. And you said it, man. He picked up on it perfect and he launched those big shots. And then the other thing that really impressed me about Robert Whittaker is, and it's no surprise, obviously, but at that high level, you see it, obviously, men reffing fights at various levels. Early on in people's careers, they get somebody hurt and they just go crazy because it's like, here's my opportunity. I got to finish this now. Robert Whittaker, nope. Patient. Oh, I'm going to throw that high kick. Didn't work. Let me reset. Keeping the pressure on, but not rushing anything, right? Not letting the moment of seeing that guy's hurt, cause you to flip and lose control. Still staying within yourself, touching them up, And man, just a spectacular finish. Unbelievable performance from Robert Whittaker.
I've been involved in this game and reffing at very high levels. Like, there's very few things that really get me jazzed up. Being able to, in the moment, pick up on tells, like, gets me jazzed up, right? I say it all. I don't say it all the time, but I recognize it all the time in the cage. That I'm like, okay, I need to look out for this guy going high with a kick, because when it lands, it's going to be devastating, because I've already picked up those tells, and I already know the fighter has picked up the tells, and the other fighter hasn't realized that he's given the tells. I see it all the time, right? And I think that's what makes me probably a better than average referee, right? I've been in there so many times, I can pick up where I can anticipate where it's going to go.
Yep.
But for him to do that within 1 minute, right? Is like next level stuff.
Well, first of all, I never even thought about a referee using tells like that as a guide of what to be looking for. I didn't even think about that, man. That's cool to think about it. But yeah, you're right. For you, you're able to pick that up because you're not worried that somebody's about to punch you in the face, right? You know what I mean? I'm just here as an observer up close, but I can see that hands dropping a little bit. I can see it. But yeah, for Robert Whittaker to pick it up on that fast, that's what comes from being in there, right? I mean, we talk about it a lot, but it is chaos inside there, man. I mean, the speed at which everything happens. So when you're able to mentally slow everything down because you've got control of it, you understand, you're able to control the nerves and to really perform. It's just unbelievable. It just shows how great Robert Whittaker is. And then, I mean, we're talking about amazing performance, and then you just talk about what an amazing dude he is, the guy that he's been elite for that long. I mean, Robert Whittaker, man, hopefully not underappreciated, because he is one of the all-time greats, man. Not a huge talker, right? He's not one of those guys that gets into the trash talking game too much. It's more of like, mate, what do you want me to say? Like, it's a fight. We're going to go fight, but he is one of the all-time greats, man. And this was a stellar performance. And again, I just hope it gets the respect it deserves, because, as you said, I don't think the masses know how good Alex Skarov is at this time. But I think, going back in time, this victory is just going to keep looking better and better, and makes the middleweight division really interesting right now.
Yes, I want to get there, and we're going to get there in 1 second. But Robert Whittaker showed emotion after that win and enthusiasm after that win that I don't generally see out of Robert Whittaker. It looked that he was just so pleased with his performance. He was jacked up by what he just did. And I kind of likened it to is he knew how dangerous this guy and what a relief it was to get through it and to do it at a level that maybe exceeded his expectation.
I agree. I think he understood the situation, right? He understood the fact that, and that's what made us praise him so much for taking the opportunity, right? Because he knew, man, I'm going in there against a tough guy that could conceivably make this very difficult for me and very hard on me and put me into a 5-round battle. And, I don't get anything guaranteed out of it. I don't get any kind of title shot out of it or a guaranteed number one contender fight, anything like that. I'm the one putting my reputation on the line. This guy is trying to make his entire career off me. This is his night to catapult himself up into the rankings. You know what I mean? And so to be willing to go out there and do that, he understood the risk and the danger that was on the line, and he went out there and delivered. And he's the kind of guy too that just wants to get back and spend some time with his kids and spend some time with his family, and to know that he doesn't have to go back or stay a few extra days in the hospital to get some medical treatment, or to go back home and talk to his kids who are upset because, man, no kid gets used to seeing their dad in there. There's just absolutely no way, especially when he's getting beat up. It's not an easy thing to do, right? So, I mean, all those emotions I think we're processing at once, and, man, just a huge moment for Robert Whittaker.
So now this does put a very, I guess, from a UFC perspective, good problem to have, but also in the same light, with recent comments of that top tier of the division, it is a problem, right? Because, okay, what did Robert Whittaker win here? A backup role, right?
Right.
It's a backup role. Like, that's what he won here, presumably, right? He says, yeah, I'll take the backup role. Dana White says he's absolutely the backup role. Okay, does anybody want to be the backup role? No, right? I guess it's best case scenario. And where I'm going with this is you have Sean Strickland sitting on the sideline saying, I will not fight again until it's for a title. Okay. Right. So Now let's throw water on the situation instead of unless huge money is thrown at him. Why in the world what would he have a number one contender fight against Robert Whittaker? There is zero upside for him. Zero.
That's it. And that's what makes it so interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people think, I mean, if you look at it on paper, the right thing to do, if these are all just easy matchups and hey, everybody has to say yes, and so that's what we do, it is the fight to make, right? Robert Whittaker versus Sean Strickland, number one contender fight. Hey, maybe even ideally at UFC 305, right? Dricus du Plessis, Israel Adesanya fighting for the title there.
For everybody who doesn't know, it's the Perth card coming up in Augtober?
August. So it's not that far.
August.
August.
Yep. Yeah.
August 18th in Perth, Australia. And that's where Robert Whittaker is going to be the backup. Obviously, he lives in Australia. He's from the region. It makes sense. That's why he's willing to be the backup. But you're right. It's not an ideal scenario. And look, I never think it's an ideal scenario to be the backup because number one, how hard are you really going in training camp if you don't think you're going to get a fight? Are you really preparing for a championship fight if you're not sure you're going to fight? And are you simultaneously preparing two game plans because you don't know which guy might fall out and you might have to
cutting weight?
And cutting weight. So it's never an ideal scenario. And all that for some money, but not your full guaranteed purse. You know what I mean? So it's never an ideal. I understand why the UFC does it. It's incredibly smart. Let's have somebody on standby. But being that guy on standby is not the ideal scenario. So you laid it out perfectly, right? You got Sean Strickland who's saying, hey, man, I've been a company guy for a long time. I know I'm a number one contender. I'm going to sit out and wait for a title, right? But now you also have Robert Whittaker saying, well, hold on, man. I'm a former champ. I'm also a company guy. I just took this no-win situation that you guys need help on because the world was falling apart. And I said, yes, I'll fight the guy that nobody else wants to fight. He's got a long history with the company. So ideally, the right fight to make is Robert Whittaker versus Sean Strickland, number one contender fight, co-main event at UFC 305. That is the fight to make. You said it, though. I don't know unless, the Brinks truck backs up to the Sean Strickland household, and even Robert Whittaker for that mind might say, no, I said, does he want to take a number one contender fight? He might say, no, I said I'd take the backup role. I didn't say I would get back into training camp for Sean Strickland. So I don't know if they can pull this off. To me, it's the fight to make. I don't know if they can pull it off, but let me say this. If there are two guys who literally are anybody, anywhere, anytime kind of guys, and they can get the numbers right and they can get the motivation right, there's a sliver of a chance. It's not a good business decision for either one of them unless the UFC comes with that money, but I think it's the fight to make. So I've got my fingers crossed that they can find a way to do it. I want to see those Fight Inc. cameras in the war room as they get these conversations done because, man, Eric, that's the fight to make, right? Hands down, that is the fight to make.
Well, okay. Yes, as it stands today, it is the fight to make, okay? But let's back up a month ago or 6 weeks ago when, this Perth main event was made. Okay. Was it theoretically the fight to make? In my opinion, did Sean Strickland really lose to Dricus du Plessis? In any other situation like that, it would almost warrant an immediate rematch. But, let's be honest. Dricus isn't the global superstar that Israel Adesanya is, right? And so now if we're going to get a blockbuster card, is Sean Strickland a big enough star to carry Dricus in another fight? Or do we just, from a UFC perspective, do we just dial in the rivalry, start replaying the clips of you're not the real African, I'm the real African, blah, 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 blah. And now we got this huge, huge fight in Adesanya's backyard. Right? That's what happened. Okay. So with that even being said, how much more would that probably tick off Sean Strickland to now double down and say, hell to the no, unless you're coming with boatloads of cash.
Like I said, beep, beep. That's the Brinks truck backing up. Let's get look. You're right. Because you're right. Before this fight and before this performance, and it just goes to show you how important it is to stay out front, stay in the limelight because things change quickly. Because you're right. The landscape before was what Sean said makes sense, right? Especially if Dricus finds a way to get through, Sean deserves that opportunity as well, right? It's such a close fight that time around. Sean is a big star. I don't know if it would be big money, like you said, but Sean is becoming a big star. And if Dricus wins, certainly, man, the build up to that's going to be big. So there's there. And I mean, you would have, look, Robert Whittaker still wants to beat Israel Adesanya. You know what I mean? So I think he would take that fight at any time too. But at that point, does Robert Whittaker say, why do I fight him coming off a loss when I probably have a number one spot as well? So
yeah,
it gets really murky. And that's why I say, like, man, if they can put the fight together now so that it's just clean, cut and dry, because depending how 305 shakes out, there's going to be a whole lot of scenarios if those guys aren't already booked.
And let's fantasy book this. Let's say Israel Adesanya beats by razor thin margin Dricus in his home country, in Adesanya's home country, beats him by the thinnest of margin, where some people could be like, hometown crowd, hometown decision. That's going to warrant an immediate rematch, which is going to put this honestly, listen, what's today? June 24th. Let's talk mid-August, late August.
I'm telling you,
what kind of a mess this situation could really be.
100%. That's why it really changed the landscape, and that's why I say if they can get that fight together, I think they're going to save themselves a bunch of headaches, right? Because then you got more of a cut and dry of who's next. But again, it's weird because on the one hand, I see Sean Strickland has no reason to fight whatsoever. Robert Whittaker has no reason to fight other than to go be the backup. Like, there's no reason for them to sign a fight. But then I see that sliver of those two guys are guys that step up and take assignments and take opportunities and understand, you only can fight for so long, seize the moment, roll the dice, see what happens. When you take chances, it can benefit your career. So
it's going to be a hard press because I think Whittaker, I think Strickland has to not like you to a degree,
right,
for that fight to happen. How can you not like Robert Whittaker? Robert Whittaker is not going to come out and say, you were abused by your dad. Ha, 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 ha. He ain't going to say that under any circumstance.
None.
He's not going to trigger Sean Strickland. He's too damn nice of a guy. So, I mean, it becomes a problem. And the only clean scenario in this is if they can try and find a way to get it done. And I think it has to be in Perth too.
I agree. It has to be that has to happen. I'm saying it right now. It has to happen. Otherwise, we're going to be having some headaches on August 19th, trying to figure out what exactly should be next. And the UFC is going to be having some headaches, and they're going to be dealing with some fighters that both lay the claim to having that opportunity. So, got to get this thing done. This thing done.
I think we'll be hearing more about it in the next month. But let's move on. Sergei Pavlovich suffers a huge loss. I mean, this. On a scale of like 1 to devastating, this could really be a devastating loss to Volkov. He was literally the guy everybody was scared of 3 months ago. Okay. Yeah. Now he's coming off back-to-back losses. And honestly, it wasn't really that competitive of a fight. He just got picked apart. And in his own words, Pavlovich said, I was just looking for a knockout, stupid game plan, my mistake, won't happen again. I'll be back stronger. Says all the right things, right? Bad loss.
Yeah, it was fun because it wasn't, the most exciting fight. Like I said, it wasn't incredibly competitive. It wasn't most of the exciting fight. It was not the fight that I was expecting to see for sure. I thought this was going to be a bad matchup for Volkov because of the power that Pavlovich possesses. But, man, Alexander Volkov just fought a smart fight, intelligent fight. Like, cannot fault him whatsoever. That dude that you have is an absolute destroyer, one-punch knockout power. And, man, just, used his size effectively, fought long, which he hasn't always done, just constant movement, not allowing himself to be a set target. It was just a very, very intelligent fight. And so, the aura is off, right? Like after the Aspinall loss, you were just like, wow, that was amazing. And be like, man, whoo. You don't want to say Aspinall got lucky, right? But it's like, man, that was tense,
Yeah, whoever was going to hit first was going to win.
That's it, right? You just go, whoo, you dodged the bullet there, man. You guys went and had a duel, and you just happened to land first. And my goodness, whoo, all right, hopefully we don't have to face that. In fact, I think a lot of us included, said, bet those guys end up fighting again down the road sometime, man, because that dude's obviously a killer in Pavlovich, and he's going to be around. I bet they'll meet up again sometime. But after this, yeah, it feels like the aura, the shine is kind of gone. And now you're like, oh, okay, no, he's scary, but he's also kind of one-dimensional. And if you can just, keep moving, don't give him an easy target to hit, yeah, you can do that. So took some more off of him. I mean, hopefully he does learn the lessons, and hopefully he is, because that is what happens, right, with that one-punch knockout power, is guys start to rely so much on landing one shot, whereas it's so wild. It's like, bro, just just touch him. Just the power that you have is God-given and natural. You don't have to swing out of your shoes every time to do it. Just touch the guy. Put the combinations together, and all of a sudden that God-given power will find the moment, and it'll happen. So, he still has to be like, I'm not writing Pavlovich off and saying that done.
Huge loss.
It is just a big loss and took a lot of the aura off of him and set him way back in the division.
But hear me out here. I'm watching this, and it's round 2.5, or round, 1.5 rounds in, and I'm thinking, like, every second that goes by, the chances of him catching him, or just going down the drain, power's going to be gone and everything. And I'm looking at Alexander Volkov, and I'm saying, this dude is massive,
huge dude,
right?
Man.
He looks like a Stefan Struve on every type of like enhancement you can get, right? He's bigger, faster, stronger.
Not to say that he is.
Yeah. Not saying that he is. I meant enhancing means just a better version everywhere, right?
Okay, all right.
What you think somebody like a Stefan Struve.
I want to make sure the record reflected those were not accusations being laid there.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it and I go, name the type of fighters or the style of fighter that gives Johnny Bones Jones a lot of trouble.
Ooh, somebody that outmatches his size.
Lanky dudes. All right. Now, I'm just going to put that right there. Now, if I were to make a fighter that I think that could give Tom Aspinall a lot of problems, I would make it the same person. Somebody that you can't use that pure explosiveness and come in recklessly, right? Aspinall's big enough where he can come in. I'm not going to say recklessly, but with reckless abandon, because he's long and strong and he's long himself. He's not going to be longer. He's not going to be bigger, right? Trying to close that distance, as we just saw Pavlovich try and do, was extremely tough. If Volkov fights that way against either Johnny Bones Jones or Tom Aspinall, holy smokes, we could have a guy that is the next could be a next champion that we have not talked about at all, that would just sneak up on us. Because after this fight, he's, if I was advising him, I'd get on the phone like, hey, man, I don't know what we're at, but we're only going to be taking fights against either Jon Jones or Aspinall after this.
Because
he was 5, just beat the 3rd ranked.
Yep.
Johnny Bones Jones is number 1. Johnny Bones Jones is champion. Tom Aspinall is number 2. Who's number 3? Curtis Blades? Is that 3?
Right.
Curtis Blades. Somebody's going to drop there. He's going to jump all the way into that spot.
So exactly. Volkov was 5. Sergei's 3. You got Aspinall at 1/interim champ. They're both tall. It's kind of weird where you say 1. Look, you got Cyril Gahn in there. But I don't think Cyril Gahn has curried himself any favor as of late. You know what I mean? With not taking the matchup. So I don't think anybody's clamoring. But the UFC goes back to Paris. They do have a history. Volkov and Gahn did fight, but it was a long time ago. He's fought Blades. So you're right.
I does nothing though for Volkov.
Well, I was going to say, I like what you're saying. I do like what you're saying. And I wanted to add in the caveat that, by the way, we've seen Volkov has decent wrestling too, which you'd want against either one of those guys, right? Because he's a big, strong guy. And he's worked with Kenny Johnson for a long time to really have, solid wrestling fundamentals. So that's a factor too. The only reason I would worry about that is, good Lord, the time of the, you know what I mean? Like, when are these fights actually happening? And I guess, I would worry. I like what you're saying. I would just worry I'm sitting too long, because we still don't know how those things are going to play out. But we know we're going to see Aspinall fight. So I guess if you're like, hey, I'll fight either one, the only thing is, do you have to wait for them to fight as well? I don't know. We'll see. That it's not a bad idea. You're probably right. It probably doesn't hurt to just sit for a little bit and see. Like, let me get some clarity to the situation right now, because those are the 2 matchups I want. I like where you're going with it.
Fantasy book again. What if Curtis Blades beats Tom Aspinall?
Right.
Okay. Now is Volkov in the position to because does the interim title switch with that? I don't know. Does the interim title switch with?
That's pretty interesting too, right? Because think about this. So, all right, Jon Jones still has to fight Stipe Miocic, right? And I think a lot of us think that Jon is going to win that fight. I personally do. That's no disrespect to Stipe. This is just it's a long time to come off the shelf and beat Jon Jones, right? I respect him taking the fight, and I'm not trying to minimize what he does. But let's say Jon Jones does win, right? If Aspinall wins, it does seem, Aspinall's been poking the bear for a long time. Even before he was champ, he was saying, one day I'd like to fight Jon Jones. It was always respectful. It was like, he's great. He's amazing. I'd like to find him. And lately, he's been kind of poking the bear a little bit and saying, where are you at? Where are you at? But so I think a lot of us have said, man, Jon, don't you want, that's a legacy fight for you right there, because we think Aspinall is going to be around for a while, beat the new champ, prove that you weren't just a fluke champ, et cetera, et cetera. But if Curtis Blaydes does find a way to win, and I love me some Curtis Blaydes, does Jon Jones look at Curtis Blaydes as a legacy fight? Does he feel like, well, I can't walk away with Curtis Blaydes as the interim champion because people will question my greatness? Whereas if
Right.
you walk, you know what I mean? Like, so then, if that scenario plays out, then Volkov maybe swoops right in and goes, oh, well, that interim champ, Curtis Blaydes, he's the champ and he needs somebody to challenge. Why not me?
Now, in full disclosure, Aspinall and Volkov have fought. Aspinall armbarred him in the first round. I'm talking about the version I saw this weekend. It was a different. He doesn't always fight with his length. He doesn't always he's down to get into exchanges, a la, the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. I'm just throwing out some crazy stuff, and I know I am, but that victory was so impressive. I think that he can be in a position where he's only fighting up, and he's only fighting the top tier name or names.
I agree with you. 100%. I know it is interesting when you look at his record, right? Because the losses that he has since 2020 are Aspinall, Cyril Gane, and Curtis Blaydes. So he's lost to all three of those guys. But exactly what you're saying, I think it's important that you remind, we're talking about this version. This guy seems to be a little bit better. This guy seems to have turned a corner and stepped up a little bit. And with that win, with the victory that he just got, he put himself in a position. He's in the discussion with those names right there.
He looks like I'm not going to say like he's an adult, right? But he looks like his body has completely filled to what it should be to fight at this level. You look back a couple years ago, he looks like he's twice the size now.
Yep. I agree. And again, putting it together, fighting, because that was always a thing. It's funny because you brought up the Stefan Struve thing earlier as well. That was a criticism of him as well, right? It's like, why is he not using his body length to his advantage? And Volkov was kind of the same thing. It's like, why are you using such a wrestling heavy, attack when you need to be in tight? Why, he's starting to use those things. He's starting to fill out the frame. He's starting to use those things. So I agree. It's probably not a bad idea to wait, because you're right. There's a lot of scenarios that could play out. If not, him and Cyril Gane, I think, might be the matchup to make. We'll see. We'll see what he wants to do. But that was a huge win. Huge win for him. That got him in the discussion with all those names.
Now, Kelvin Gastelum not currying any favors with the UFC, misses weight again at welterweight. Guess what? He can't make it at catch weight at 80 either. Got to go up to 185 against D-Rod. Kind of makes it look easy against D-Rod, right? But like, D-Rod didn't lose anything, in my opinion, in that fight. Gastelum still doesn't do himself any favors, even looking really, really good. Dana White's pissed. Listen, Kelvin, you're not going to get the chance to fight at 70 ever again. It is what it is.
I think he's got to accept that he's a middleweight at this point, and it sucks because who doesn't like Kelvin Gastelum, right? Just a good dude, great fighter. The fight with Israel Adesanya is legendary. One of the greatest moments in UFC history. And he's been in some fights, and he goes out there and he just fights and has fun. But it's hard. You can't by what he did on Fight Week, you remove any ability to give him praise whatsoever for this performance. And it was a good performance. Like you said, he went out against a tough fighter and made it look pretty easy. You know what I mean? But just we understand, man. You have to make weight. That's the biggest deal. You sign the contract, man. That is rule number one, right? That is the job. The job is to show up and make weight, and didn't do it. And it's just unfortunate because Kelvin is such a great figure in this sport and such a great fighter, but you can't praise him at all for this. You can praise D-Rod, though. How about the social media message? He says, oh, by the way, coming in and say, I took this, I'm disappointed, but got a new contract, got a raise, got part of Kelvin's money. I think you're right about that. I don't think D-Rod loses any reputation, and I definitely don't think he loses any respect in the eyes of the UFC brass, which that does matter. So good on him to take this opportunity, even though I know how frustrated he is with a loss. But it's just a damn shame because I like Kelvin Gastelum a lot. I like him as a person. I like him as a fighter. But when this stuff happens, man, and he owned up to it. Look, it's not like he was denying it. He apologized. He didn't necessarily say exactly what happened, but he did own up that I screwed up and I'm sorry. But it's not the first time, right? And it's just, I think you got to say, look, you're a middleweight now.
Yeah. Quickly, albeit maybe a little not. I don't think there was a level of big reffing controversy here, but people were talking about some reffing controversy. Marc Goddard, had a little bit of reffing controversy, not stopping a fence grab by Magomedov, and Jason Herzog gets kind of roasted when Johnny Walker got killed, essentially.
Scary knockout.
Scary. I mean, that was brutally scary. It was a bang bang knockout. I want to start with Jason here, okay? Because I even went back to his tweets right after oh gosh, what was the fight that everybody said he stopped early?
Oh shoot, I don't remember right now.
it was just a fight in Louisville, all right? And anyways, everybody's like, you stopped it too early, it was the worst stoppage ever, and blah 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 blah, all right? There was a lot of hubbub. Now, I said that Jason had been ultra.
Oh, that's right. It was the main event in Louisville between Nassourdini Mavov and Jiri Cannonier. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
10-year stoppage, right?
Yep.
I think we got caught in the middle here, right? Okay. A lot of people are killing the guy for stopping it too early. Now a bang bang, people are stopping him for stopping it too late. We're in a no-win situation. He had a tweet after. I don't know if you saw this. Jason Herzog actually tweeted and said, listen, I know what I saw. I'm talking about the Cannonier stoppage. I know what I saw, but enough people have said something, so I'm going to reevaluate.
Boy, what a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of job it is, right? Because I thought the exact same thing. And you know what's funny is I thought the exact same thing, and I had totally forgotten about the Mavov Cannonier stoppage, to be honest. I was honestly just looking at this fight, in a bubble of itself, where it was nasty, right? And had he stopped it before that last shot from Uzdemir, I don't think anybody necessarily would have complained, but I don't know. Maybe they would have. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's such a difficult job where, as you said, you're talking about one punch being a difference, 1 second, one moment. And I get it. That's the role. But good Lord, the criticism of that was clearly way too early. What are you doing? Let the guy fight, to, oh my gosh, are you trying to get this guy killed? What are you doing? And you're talking about one punch. I mean, had he stopped it before Johnny Walker is out cold, I don't think people would have complained. But you know what? Maybe they would have. Maybe said, oh my God, here's Herzog again. Is he going to let these guys fight? This is not some amateur level, bar room fight. Like, this is the highest level of the sport. There's a lot on the line. Let these guys fight. Let them go out on their shield, because maybe they'll battle back. And it's funny, like Johnny Walker, another thing that occurs to me is got to be just a difficult guy to ref, right? Because he's wild. He's all over the place. He's got to be tough.
It's hard to be in a good position as a ref.
Right, exactly. Because
I hate people who switch stance as a ref. I'm going to give you guys a tell really quick. As a ref, people who switch stance repeatedly are very hard to ref.
Right.
Because there's basically a triangular zone that you need to stay in where you can see both kind of groin shots and eye pokes and everything. You can look at it in a big box. And when you're switching stance, that means now you're closed off to one side. So you're trying to anticipate the closed stance, which means it just makes it harder. So yes, to your point, reffing a Johnny Walker is a lot more difficult than it is to fight, a southpaw versus orthodox, or an orthodox versus orthodox, or a southpaw versus a southpaw.
The open stance matchups are the perfect ones, right, for referees, because I can get on this side of it and I can see both you guys perfect. I can see everything. That's the best one for a referee. So that's great. No, that's great insight. I love those little details that you share, because obviously you've gotten to experience that. So yeah, this one, I saw the controversy. I saw the criticism. As far as this one goes with Jason Herzog, I just honestly, this to me just felt like, dude, what are you supposed to do? Like, that's the game that we signed up for, you know what I mean? And maybe he could have stopped it one punch earlier, but I'm not looking at that stoppage from Jason Herzog and being like, bro, you got to tighten up your game. No. That was a bang call.
Even if you were to stop it one punch earlier, that means you would have had to basically been in the firing zone to stop it. The punch happened. He's covering up, boom, the punch happens. He goes down, bam, the punch happens. I mean, literally that was how fast it was.
I agree. I think the criticism here is a little bit too much. So I understand it. And again, it's scary knockouts, and we don't want to see scary knockouts, but we don't have to, right? Unfortunately, that is the game that everybody signs up for, right? Everybody understands the potential for what can happen when they get in there. That's what they signed up for. It was scary to see. It was hard to watch, but I don't walk away with this one saying that, hey, man, Jason Herzog really dropped the ball in this one. I just don't. I feel like it was a bang-bang, like you said, and it was unfortunate to see, and hate to see it for Johnny Walker, man. I mean, that dude is capable of such great stuff and fun, and he's had a couple scary losses, right? And man, props to Volkan Oezdemir, who is kind of reclimbing his way up the ranks, man. So this was it's a hell of a way to start things out. Very
impressive by Oezdemir. Now, there was a little bit earlier in the night on the prelims, a lot of people giving some Marc Goddard some grief over a fence grab that prevented a takedown. That fence grab was by Magomedov. Pronounce it.
Share a bullet. Make it easy on you. Share a bullet, but share a Magomedov.
Okay. Share a bullet, who, a lot of people said there's tons of upside for this guy, right? And he staves off a takedown, which could have dramatically swung this fight, right? Yeah, I mean, you're not allowed to grab the fence, and it compounds it. Regardless, in any situation, you're not allowed to grab the fence, and compounds it more if it altered a position. Okay?
Right.
Marc Goddard just missed it. It happens, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's the way I could say it. And it's kind of like hard when a fence grab happened. A lot of times I'm going to give the refs the benefit of the doubt, just because if you miss one thing and then something else happens immediately after, then you need to start reffing what happens immediately after, almost disregard it and almost just give it a warning in time. Hey, don't do that again. This one, I think you said it to me earlier. Yeah, Marc Goddard we'll chalk it up. Hey, I missed it. I messed that one up.
I think so. I like Marc Goddard a lot, man. As a referee, he's top notch. You know what I mean? And just as a guy, I've had the opportunity to spend some time with him over the years. When we're sitting around in airports or whatever it may be, we've crossed paths and just had some discussions about the sport, about life, whatever. I like Marc Goddard a lot. I just feel like this is one we all make mistakes. I feel like I believe, I haven't talked to him personally about this, but I honestly believe he could probably, if you talked to him about that one, say, yeah, I think I would have handled that one differently. If I could go back and fix it, I would change this. You know what I mean?
But here's how you fix it, right? I don't know what justice it did, right? It was a stoppage finish, right? So we let's just
point doesn't matter if you'd have taken a point, because if you'd have taken a point, it doesn't matter.
A lot of people don't understand this. A lot of even other refs on a regional seat. I had this argument with somebody 2 weeks ago at a Carter ref. Listen, if I'm going to take the point, I then cannot reward you with the point and the position.
Right.
It has to go back to neutral.
Yep. And so here's a weird one too, because earlier in the card, another referee had given the takedown, right? But that was kind of a wild situation. So it's a weird situation, guys. If you want to give them the takedown, but you can't tell what position they were going to fall into from somebody grabbing on the fence. So what position do I give you? Do I start you from a referee's position, like in wrestling, or do I put you on the ground? And you have hooks in. We do it like
was what he had to do.
You would take a point, and this is why I think maybe if he didn't miss it, if this was his thought process, this would be if I take a point, I now have to reset you guys. And we know that Antonio Trocoli wants to get this fight to the ground, wants to stay in the clinch, whereas Sharon Magomedov wants to be the striker, right? So if I'm resetting you, am I actually doing any favor for you, Antonio Trocoli, or am I messing things up by forcing you to go back to a stand-up position and work yourself back into a clinch against this dynamic, superior striker? So I still think, honestly, a point deduction probably would have been worthy, even if you don't stop the matchup, right?
It completely altered the position. Yes,
exactly. So I think a point deduction was worthwhile. Ultimately, it didn't matter because there was a finish. So I still think Marc missed the point deduction, but I don't know if that was his thought process. But if it was his thought process as to why I'm not stopping this right now, I get it, because it's not really rewarding the guy who was, damaged because of the foul. So, but again, I think, obviously, as you know, and if people don't know, the referee can totally signal like, hey, I'll wait for a break in the action. Now I'll call time, and I'm calling a point for that earlier infraction, right? So you don't have to take it right then. I think it was worthwhile. Ultimately, there was a knockout anyway. So as you said, even if a point had been taken, it doesn't matter. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I do think it could have been handled differently, but I don't think it's quite maybe as serious of an infraction as everybody is making it out to be.
I go back to, I reffed a card a couple weeks ago in Mississippi, right? And there was multiple groin shots on everybody, right? On this one fight, like groin shot. And then I kind of hard warning. I said, listen, zero tolerance of groin shots from here on out. Like I stopped both the fighters. Zero tolerance. Pick your shots wisely. Okay. Lo and behold, another groin shot happens. And I didn't take a point, even though I threatened it, because one fighter worked in. So this has happened. One fighter worked into the clinch and they were both throwing inside knees, right? And the guy gets hit. The one who worked himself into the clinch had his opponent's back up against the cage where he wanted to get the fight. Then he takes a low blow and he looks at me and I just said, keep fighting.
There you go.
I go, keep fighting. And then the round hits. I walked in and I walked to his corner and I walked with him. I said, hey, listen, yes, you did get fouled, but I did not want to take the position away from you.
There you go. That's it. 100%. And so somebody on the outside might just be like, ref, how'd you miss that foul? Especially after you warned him. But there is a thought process involved. Like, hold on, by stopping this, am I really rewarding this person? Am I really helping them out? Or am I forcing them now to step? Because you see that a lot. It's like, well, I don't really want the foul. You know what I mean? Now you're forcing me to step back and reset and work my way to that position again, which was very difficult for me to get to. So if that was a thought process, I completely understand it. I just think that was significant enough that it did warrant a point deduction. Ultimately, it didn't matter because you got the finish from Sergei Pavlovich in the third. Another situation where, look, Shera is fun, man. I don't know that he's going to be a future champion down the road. I think there are, some holes in his game, but he's very, very fun to watch. Also don't know, if he can fight in the United States or not, but because of his eye condition, but he's fun to watch fight. And Trocoli, we're talking about all the respect for Robert Whittaker. Save some of that respect for Antonio Trocoli as well, right? I mean, what a story that is. Dude accepts the fight on several, on hours notice, basically. Flies from the United States to Saudi Arabia, gets there at 1 o'clock in the morning on weigh-in day, has 8 hours to make weight, does it, you know what I mean? There's no way that type of travel, that type of late weight cut didn't impact his performance into why he kind of seemed to slow down and tire. But you heard Dana White
in the third round.
Oh, he was done. But you heard Dana White in the post-fight press conference who said, you know what? That dude didn't get a bonus, but we'll trust me. We'll be sending some cash that man's way. We'll be taking care of him because that you got to respect that, guys. Man, you want everything to be perfect. I get it, but man, when you get opportunities, when that phone rings, man, answer it. You'll be amazed at what it might do for you down the road.
Yeah. So, all right, Conor makes headlines, not in a UFC cage. He makes headlines in a Bellator cage on a Bellator broadcast from his home country of Ireland. I'm going to quickly go through it, then we can talk about it, right? So Conor grants 2 interviews, okay, at the Bellator event. One in the cage. And I'm going to surmise this really quick. Hey, everything's going well. I'm healing. I had a bad toe, okay? I'm not going to go into a fight injured ever again. I've done that. The fans deserve to see me at my best. I'm going to give them at the best. And guess what? These bums don't deserve to get an advantage over me that they didn't earn.
But
tend to agree.
I tend to agree with that. I've seen a lot of people giving him grief, and some of them just because they're trying to stir the pot a little bit, and others because they're like, wait a minute, man, you a broken toe? That's the issue here. You can't fight.
Hear Chael Sonnen's take.
Oh, yeah, I heard. Chael's had a couple takes about this, all right? He's had a couple takes along the way. Chael. Chael Sonnen likes to have fun, and he'll say he never lets facts get in the way of a good story. You know what I mean? That's Chael. You know what I mean? Don't let that. And that's why he's so entertaining. But, yeah, and look, I have seen people that have been like, bro, come on, a broken toe. But, I mean, listen, A, Conor kicks a lot. B, he uses a lot of movement. You know what I mean? And you can't say that, like, that broken toe wouldn't impact your ability to either A, throw strikes with it, or B, support your weight and your movement and the shifts and the angles and the things that you like to do. It's really unfortunate because, it just seems, I mean, it is like the smallest like injury that you could have that could withdraw you from a fight. But I understand what he's saying. How many more times is he going to fight? He wants to make sure he's 100% every time he does it. But revealing it all in the Bellator cage was a little interesting. That was a little interesting. Hey, in Bellator, I kind of like the fact that they were just leaning into this thing the whole time. They were, hey, let's show them on social media, pulling up to the arena. Let's put a camera on.
And then what?
let's bring him in the camera, Connor, and give him the microphone. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, man, it's like kind of, you got the biggest star in the world, leverage it. So he then gives another interview backstage, right? And I think this was for some local press.
Yeah, I think it was Severe MMA, the Irish media that has been there from the beginning and followed his rise like from the very earliest days of his career. So he's always been very loyal to them.
And this one was a lot more telling. Okay. They ask him, how's it going? When do you think you'll fight again? He's, I'm hoping September, trying to do my Conor. September, which, people would think Sphere, right? September. And he's like, okay, well, how did this all unfold? And he's like, well, I couldn't go to the press conference. I'm surmising, of course. Right. I couldn't go to the press conference because I didn't want anybody to see it. I'm still wearing slippers, right? And so, okay, makes sense. And I was going to see how it was going to heal. And then the UFC started giving me treatment options, right? They're going to say, we're going to take some stem cells out of your back and we're going to put it in your toe. And, he's like, they put it into the break of my toe. There was a little left over. I said, put it in my shoulder. Now my shoulder feels amazing, but I don't think it was the smartest thing to put it into the break of my toe. So he's almost saying on one hand, like, hey man, they're just trying to rush me back. Right. He's saying that on one hand and then saying, but then he praised him earlier. And I've done everything I've fought this way. I've fought injured. I'm not going to do it again. But they rushed me back. They're trying to rush me.
Well, Connor, we do have a big card in Las Vegas that we built completely around you. So
right, but
maybe not rush you, but maybe encourage you.
You don't think? Listen, Connor's no dummy. If you don't think him doing this at a Bellator event is saying something without saying something, then me and John Morgan are going to say something to you.
This is true. Hey, Connor learned from Dana White as well, right? How to use the public messaging and the media to your advantage, to drop little words here and say certain things in the right situations to get your message across. And yes, it was quite interesting because it seemed to me that there was a little bit maybe of maybe they're not necessarily on the same page right now as to where that next fight is going to be taking place.
There is definitely hurt feelings right now on both sides.
100%. And there has to be. I mean, look, Dana White was asked about it in Saudi Arabia as well. And
let's get to it then.
I mean, can we let's try. If you didn't see it, here was the reaction.
Obviously, Conor McGregor is out with injury. He did some interviews today where he said, he's going to stay focused. He's going to try and get back as soon as he can.
Who said that?
Conor did.
Yeah, okay.
He would like a date in around September or August. Would you be open to creating a date for him, or does he have to fit into the schedule?
I don't know right now. Yeah, our schedule laid out, so we'll see. I'm not doing anything until I know that Conor is healthy. It's not even worth talking about. Till what about September? What about October? He's not ready. So why even talk about that?
Obviously, McGregor has a fight with Chandler, but Islam and his team talking a little bit about him possibly fighting Conor. Have you ever thought about this fight?
I'm not thinking about Conor fighting anybody right now. Yeah.
Just jumping on, I know that you have no idea about Conor McGregor yet, but considering the time frame of September,
I have no time frame. I have nothing.
No, I just wanted to mention that the Vegas card of September, like the Sphere, kind of, it's coincidental in time with it. Like that would be a good fit for McGregor over there. And on top,
but McGregor's not even healed yet. McGregor's hurt.
Okay, so not a lot of words being said there, but we're talking about some words that weren't said that maybe should be said. Not a lot said there, but I don't know, man. As I'm watching that seemed like a man that was not not wanting to slam Conor, right? You don't want to disrespect Conor. He is the biggest star in the sport. You know that you got to do business with him. You have a couple of fights left on your contract. You got to work together. You make great money together, but you ain't real happy with your business partner right now. At least that's the way it felt to me. That if you just read the quote on paper and read the words that Dana White said, there's nothing inaccurate there. It's factual. But you can't tell me with that reaction he wasn't a little bit annoyed with the way things were unfolding.
Okay, it's how you say it and what your body language says. Oh, wait, who said that? You know exactly who said that. Conor did? Oh.
Why are we talking about? He hasn't even healed up yet. We don't make plans like that. I mean, you don't plan months and months out for a Conor McGregor fight. Like you just wait and say, you know what? We're thinking about doing one 2 weeks from now. How about that?
He said August, September. I'm not even talking about a date with Conor because he's not ready yet. Right? I wish we could put both. I wish we could splice Conor, Dana, Conor, Dana, Conor, Dana. Right? And then he goes on to say, like, because somebody then asked about I think the Sphere and conventional wisdom is going to say the main event is going to be announced for Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway. Conventional wisdom is going to say that. Okay. And Dana gets asked about the Sphere and he goes, or he gets asked if any other matchups interest him for Conor, like Islam or anybody. And he goes, I'm not even thinking about any matchups for Conor. He's not thinking about Conor fighting anyone right now because Conor's not ready. And here's the funny thing about it. It's the dismissive nature in which he does it.
100%. 100%. Like, bro, and I get it. I mean, he is 100% right in the fact, like, when he tells us, hey, man, we don't make matchups on the night of fights. Well, yeah, you do. Sometimes you do. Not always, but sometimes you do. Sometimes, because we hear it from the athletes that you came right back and you're like, hey, we want to put you. So sometimes you do. But yeah, you're right. I mean, with a star as big as Conor McGregor, I mean, we do it, right? Okay, hey, Conor says he's going to fight. He hasn't fought in 2 years, but he says he's going to fight again. When and where do you think it'll be? We sit there and we go, well, there's only a couple places he can fight. You got to do it in Las Vegas or Madison Square Garden. You got to maximize the opportunity. I mean, it's not hard. When Conor McGregor fights, there's certain criteria that has to be met, and there's only certain places. It's not like, oh, Conor McGregor, bro, we're doing fight cards every week. We could throw him on an Apex show. We could throw, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to happen that way. So, of course, you're thinking about it at least a little bit. You know what I mean? Because there's only certain places he fits in. And
he says that we're already laid out.
Right. So are you saying that if Conor McGregor says he's good to go? Now, the Sphere thing is interesting, right? Because Conor keeps throwing out the Sphere. And I think Conor's smart, right? He understands this is going to be an iconic moment in the sport's history, right? This is going to be an amazing over-the-top show, the likes of which has never been seen before in combat sports. And if you're going to have a show like that, why don't you put on a guy that is the biggest star in the history of the sport in Conor McGregor? And that does make sense, right? But we also know how much preparation goes into this Sphere show, right? I mean, this is over the top. I mean, the production and levels to the ball.
17 million in. Did I hear that correctly?
That is what he said. That is amazing. So there are multi-million dollars into the production and preparation for this thing. So you can't. So it's twofold. Number one, if we're doing a whole show based on Mexican Independence Day, how do we like wedge Conor McGregor into there, right? Like, yeah. and then
the other Chandler.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, how does
Captain America versus Ireland's greatest on the Mexican Independence Day show?
Nothing makes Mexicans more proud of their heritage than seeing U.S. versus Ireland, right? I mean, so how does that work? And number two, let's be honest, and I don't mean this as any knock because we understand injuries happen in the sport, right? But there has to be a little bit of trepidation there of like, bro, we just built International Fight Week around you, our annual Super Bowl. That's it. Our annual celebration of the sport. And when we book you on a card, we don't worry about what the co-main and the third fight is. We don't worry so much because whatever those fights are, it doesn't matter. People are buying the ticket to watch you fight. That fell apart. We scrambled and put something together that's happening this weekend, UFC 303, without Conor McGregor. But there has to be at least a little fear of like, bro, this fear show, it has to be perfect, and we can't risk. We haven't seen you in years. We can't risk losing you again 2 weeks out from the card. You know what I mean? So I understand why Conor wants to be there. And in a lot of ways, it would be a perfect marriage in just the fact of this iconic location and an iconic fighter. But with all that other stuff that we just mentioned around it, I don't think that makes sense. So now you start looking towards, again, there's only so many places he can fight. So now you start looking towards, well, Madison Square Garden's probably happening in November. Would certainly make sense for Conor McGregor to fight there. But wait, that's probably where we're doing Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic there. So how do we do Stipe and Jon and Conor and Chandler? We can't do that. Okay.
You can't. What,
all right.
You think Jon Jones is going to be the co-main event?
No, hell no.
You think Conor's going to be the co-main?
Hell no. Absolutely not. So you can't do that. The only thing you could do is set up 2 octagons and have them fight simultaneously so they're both the main event, right? Like you can just both be fighting at the same time. So you can't do that. So Madison Square Garden's out. So now we're looking at December, end of year show in Las Vegas. Maybe, okay, now we're talking, but maybe they already have an idea of that. I don't know. So this was a huge.
Guess what? That's still 5-6 months away.
It's a huge. This
and Conor says he wants to fight in September. So here's where we're going with all this, right? We're playing checkers. Conor and Dana are playing chess through the media with what they're saying and what they're not saying, but how they're saying it.
They're 2 of the best to ever do it. They're 2 of the best to ever do it. To their messaging, both in the words that they say and the words they don't say, and how both are said. They're both masters at it, and you got a little read in fight game psychology this past weekend in Saudi Arabia and in Ireland.
All right, man, we are running long today because there was so much. We had to give praise all the way around and then talk to Conor. But we got 303 this weekend. It's pay-per-view fight week, and we are just now getting into it, dang near an hour into the broadcast. So we don't have a lot of time to talk, okay? I'm going to by the way, another pullout. Roman Dolidze in. How awesome is that? Short notice,
Love
right?
It was in Georgia, by the way, not the state, the country. He was halfway across the world and made the flight in. So props to those guys. He'll be fighting Anthony Smith now.
Okay, I'm gonna name 3 fights, and I'm gonna ask which one you are most excited for. Alex Bahia, Jiri Prochazka, Brian Ortega, Diego Lopez, or Ian Gary and MVP.
Oh man. All right. Well, there's a title on the line in one, and it's a rematch of a fight that was intriguing the first time around, of course, in the main event. So that's quite intriguing. But anytime Brian Ortega fights, I'm in. And Diego Lopez, anytime he fights, I'm in. Meanwhile, you got Ian Machado Gary, who is, the undefeated rising superstar and likes to stir the pot a little bit. You got Michael Venom Page, who's one of the most unique stylistic fighters that we've ever seen, and also can cut a solid promo as well. There's cases to be made. I guess I'm gonna have to default to the championship fight just because anytime a title is on the line, like it has that extra level. And right. Alex Bahia is quickly becoming one of the faces of the organization, but there's history here, and stylistically they are intriguing, competitive. So I guess I'm gonna go with the title fight. But I'm telling you right now, the 3 you named off are phenomenal fights. How about you?
I'm excited for all of them equally. That was a trick question.
I didn't know I could go 33, 33, 33. Yeah. I didn't know I could go third.
Listen, you got Ian Gary saying that Michael Venom Page can't even basically, hold his cup. Right? That's he's going out in bold statements saying that he's not going to be able to beat anybody in the rankings. Essentially is what he's saying. Okay. Actually, I think it is what he did say. He goes, anybody actually me or higher. Michael Page cannot beat anybody. That's some bold words because of the stylistic nature. Now, I'm really excited about this fight just from a stylistic breakdown. They both fight eerily long, weird, and similar, but in different ways. Okay. So I'm anxious to see. I don't think Michael Page can jump in like he does against most people. I don't think he can jump in against Ian Gary that way. So he's going to have to be utilizing kicks and range and maybe be able to counter more than that explosive jump in. That's why I'm excited to see how that stylistic breakdown plays out. Now, I may honestly be most excited about the co-main event, Brian Ortega and Diego Lopez. And Diego Lopez, he doesn't have the fanfare around him that Ortega does, or at least the number, but he's a white-hot baby face right now. They both are. I'm interested to see, can Diego Lopez work at the frenetic pace against somebody that high in the division, like a calm, cool, and collected Brian Ortega? That is what I'm anxious to see.
Agreed. This is a massive step up, right? Like, it's been amazing with the run that he's put together. Diego Lopez has truly changed his life in a year, right? In stepping into the UFC, took a short notice opportunity against a guy undefeated, Movsar Evloev, didn't go his way, but was rallied back with 3 first-round stoppages. Has looked like an absolute stud in doing it. Is got the fanfare for his haircut and his style and everything else, as you said, man. White hot baby face right now, but Ortega battle tested, man. This dude is as dangerous as they come. He's got some hands, but that submission game is just nasty. He's as good as it gets. So I love it. So you're right, man. It's that fight. And again, you got me with the trick question there, but the only reason I would lean main over co-main is because of the championship being on the line. Anytime there's a title fight, it's history in the making. Mm-hmm. That co-main event, man, when they came in with that one, you knew that co-main event only came around when the Conor McGregor card fell off, and now you got to save the card. So you're like, we got to bring some heat. And that's what they brought in as a co-main event. And I thought that as soon as they announced it, I think everybody in the fight game was just like, woo! Damn, yes, let's go.
Brian Ortega is so good. And we saw it against Yair Rodriguez. Fights back off of getting clipped and knocked down in the first round to eventually, just start chipping away a Yair. And he's going to have to catch Brian Ortega early. He's 100%. Going to have to. So that's the dynamic here. Is he going to be able to work at that frenetic pace with that frenetic energy? And if he can't catch him early, then what happens? And almost how bad would it be for you if you don't?
Could be. I mean, but man, I mean, the challenge is high, but we talked about Diego Lopez has changed his life in a year. Oh my gosh, the superstardom and the opportunities that this would catapult him to if he delivers yet again.
Modella's going to give him a contract on the spot.
I'm telling you, man. That's it, man. He's signing all the deals, man. So
he's going to be dating models. He's going to be dating actresses and models after this.
Life-changing, my man. Life-changing.
But this is almost a no-lose situation for Diego Lopez. And it's a very risky fight for Brian Ortega.
Very much so, because again, this is your opportunity to catapult up the ranks. You know what I mean? It really is. And if you come up short, again, in the same way we didn't talk about much, but Ikram Aliskerov, look, man, like that dude is going to be better after that loss, right? We talk about it, and I've said it all along. You just see it in so many careers, unless it's Khabib Nurmagomedov. Guys get to a level and then they lose, and they go, oh, okay, I see now. I understand what this level is about. I understand what has to happen, what changes need to be made. So Diego Lopez, if he comes up short here, and I'm not saying he will, if he does, though, at least he's going to have had that opportunity. Co-main event, International Fight Week, elite level competition. I got it. Now I know. And if he wins, man, unbelievable.
Rocket ship.
Strap it on.
Now I'm tremendously excited. The fight is secondary for me to the stare down. The pre-fight, White Bruce Buffer is doing his thing. Jiri, Alex, stare down. So awkward, so awesome. You have Pereira just staring like a sociopathic serial killer, and then Prochazka looking a little weird while doing it. It's going to be awesome. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I love it, man. It was such a good fight, the first time around. I mean, I know it's coming together on short notice this time, but again, Alex Pereira is that dude that's he's ready anytime. Coming off, a seminar tour to take this matchup. Jiri was preparing for something else, so it kind of came together late. But it's still a heck of a fight. They do have history, which makes it, always ask the storylines going into it. Was it stopped early? Was it not stopped early the first time around? The stylistic matchup is fun because. Jiri is a wild, crazy, dangerous striker, man. His finishing rate is unbelievable, but Alex Pereira has that one shot, finishing power of anybody in the division. Jiri had some success early in their first time around, with the takedowns. I gotta think, and we touched on it a little bit last week, but you were talking about the fact that you want to see that forward pressure and that movement, and I agree, right? That we haven't seen Alex fighting off the back foot that often, and I completely agree. And Jiri's best success in the first fight was when he pushed into the clinch and moved forward and got the takedown. So he has to, but it's scary because exactly the way the stoppage itself, I don't know. I can see the arguments. It didn't feel like it was too early. Again, it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Position they were in.
They were in a weird position, right? But I mean, Alex was following the mountain and pummeling him. It was a weird spot. But the best the best opportunities for Jiri was when he was pressing forward. The takedown early on worked for him. I'd imagine we got to see more of that in this one. Pereira did get up, but still, I mean, that was a good opportunity for Jiri to take it. But, it's those in-between spots, right? Because he was kind of in an in-between spot when he got caught with the left. And that left is dynamite. You got to be careful with it, man. And it's not one that's thrown with a massive windup. It's a short shot. You know what I mean? You can hit it anywhere. So it's dangerous. I get it. It's scary. It sounds counterintuitive. Like, what do you mean you want me to stay in the face of Alex Pereira? Like, what are you talking about?
What are you, nuts?
Yeah, like, you go do it. The Mike Perry, you get in there. I'm not going. So it's a tough assignment, but I do think that's what it's going to take to beat him, right? I mean, you do have to pressure him, and we'll see if he can do that.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to start switch stance too. I'm anxious to see if that happens.
Yeah, because the kicks were wearing him out early on, right? I mean, the lead leg was damaged like early on in the fight.
Same thing against Ratchik.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know. Certainly, they went back to the drawing board and like, hey, we got to check these things a little bit, or we got to avoid these. Like the first Rakic, he was just like, no, I'll take him, whatever. But I don't think you can take him with Pereira, man. Those things are so nasty, and you got such a game and style that is so rooted in movement and weirdness. You know what I mean? It's like that's such a big part of it is the unpredictability of what you're doing, and if you can't move, and now. Yes, you're still powerful and you're still dangerous, but you're a sitting duck. That takes away so much. So I love it. I love it too that and I know that for the media members out there that are just they want to generate clicks on the hot quotes and the trash talk. There's not going to be a lot of that, but I like fights like that. Like I don't think every fight has to be about talking trash. I think these are just two elite level fighters that will be respectful of each other. And there, like I said, there won't be a lot of money lines in the media sessions this week, but it's just a hell of a fight between two incredibly talented martial artists. And so I love that. I'm excited for it.
And how can you not just like both of these guys? I mean, with Jiri, he's like, yes, I'm not a samurai, but the spirit lives within me. Like, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go, my man. Gosh, don't we wish we all had that samurai spirit within us? A lot of us say we do.
No, that dude has it. That dude has it, man. And gosh, I mean, just what Pereira has been able to do in such a short time in the UFC. I mean, he benefited from the relationship with Israel Adesanya. I thought the UFC played that perfect. There were a lot of people on the rise. They were like, oh, they're fast tracking him. I'm like, of course, you have to fast track him. There's a built-in storyline. You got to let this thing play out. And it gave us an incredible rivalry that maybe isn't done yet. Maybe they'll still meet up again down the line. So it gave us an incredible rivalry. And man, Pereira just took advantage of that, and the rise is amazing. It's so cool to see what a star that guy is, man. I'm telling you, every room that dude is in, the crowd goes nuts for Poatan, man. It's incredible to see. So it's good. T-Mobile Arena Saturday night. I'll be cage side. I can't wait for that. I am actually scheduled to. We'll hope, knock on wood, things change sometimes on fight weeks. But I am scheduled to talk to Ian Gary for Grind City Media tomorrow at the UFC Apex. So we'll have that interview coming here. So stay tuned and pay attention for that. But yeah, man, it's always a shame. We talked about it. It's always a shame when you lose Conor McGregor because that just brings an extra level of just buzz and attention and chaos of fight week. It really does. But this is still a heck of a fight card, man, and I'm looking forward to it.
I just can't wait to watch the walkout. I just can't wait to watch Alex Pereira's walkout. It's going to be so awesome.
The best in the game, right? The best in the game.
And we ran a little short on time. Like we went way over, but we ran a little short on time of breaking down the fights. I know that's what me and John both like to do, but in the interest of keeping this somewhat on schedule, we're not going to do it today. But we talked a lot. We talked about UFC on ABC 6, a little bit of wrestling controversy. I don't really think there's much to talk about there. Conor making headlines. Dana making headlines with not saying a lot. 303 this weekend. Let's go. Anything else?
That's it, man. I'm dialed in for that, man. It's International Fight Week. It's going to be a crazy schedule. There's a ton of stuff going on. There's a UFC X, the Expo, so I'll actually be doing some interviews there as well. There's a Hall of Fame induction. Power Slap is happening Friday night at the Fontainebleau. There's a Hall of Fame induction. The Hall of Fame class this year is incredible, and there'll always be a bunch of celebrities there. So, yeah, we'll have a lot of content coming your way. That's for sure.
Bam. With that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.